China's opening up and reform, meaning China's opening itself to the world market and joining the global trade system, free trade system, it cannot be done without the consent and the support of the United States. So the US-China relationship is extremely important, or even a defining factor in China's process of joining the world by way of opening up reform. Both are 40 years. One is 40 years already, the other is a little less than 40 years. You are saying that how should we correlate the two to see why it is so closely related? I mentioned that China's success or China's effort to open up and reform itself will not achieve success without consent support of the United States. This is on the one hand. On the other, I believe that in the past 40 years, the United States has supported China for joining the global system as defined by the US, global trade system, global economic system, financial system, etc. For several reasons. One is China is a big market with 1.3 billion people. It's a huge market with growth potentials for US capital, US investment. The world market, globalization brings about world market. The world market will not be complete without China. And also China is attractive because it holds lots of potential for investment and trade. Look at China-US economic trade relationship, you can see very clearly about it. So market is one thing, market share. Secondly, I believe for 8 successive US presidencies since the two countries had diplomatic relationship, they have all operated on one assumption. That is, by drawing China into the global system, which is guided, dominated by the United States, and let China move into globalization and economically become gradually well off, the benefits will accrue to a large section of Chinese population, meaning what they call middle class. The rank of middle class will expand. And they also believe, the US elites also believe, if China succeeds in economic reform, mainly by joining market mechanism, using market mechanism to utilize the global market and be part and parcel of this global production chain, which actually China is now, China will inevitably, what they believe, inevitably move in political terms or in terms of political system, political design in its institutions, will move towards what US has defined liberal democracy, the model of liberal democracy. That's what they believe. They think this is the right policy. That policy of co-opting China into the global system, whereby China can be gradually changed, is underpinning all other policies of the United States towards China. And of course, there's up and downs. Some period it's successful, sometime it's not so successful. But at each period of time, US has found some strategic anchor in this relationship so that it can promote that strategy of drawing China into the system. Whether in the 70s or 80s with the former Soviet Union as their main, what shall I say, main adversaries they need to deal with respectively for different reasons, of course. And then the economic cooperation that is very much benefiting both nations, and then move on to deal with global challenges, whether it's global war on terror, as U.S. President Bush Jr. has claimed, or joint efforts to deal with, to roll back the world financial crisis, climate change, etc., etc. So each period of time in the past 40 years, there is a sort of anchor in this relationship. But all of these has one theory behind it, or one assumption behind it, that is what I mentioned. But after 40 years, almost 40 years, I think the reflection or doubts have to grow, reflection had begun to surface by the time after the financial crisis, 2009, 2010, about that time. Because after 10 years, extensive entanglements by the United States in the Middle East, Afghanistan war, Iraq war, and then the financial crisis, has made the U.S. stop and think whether it had made a mistake, strategic mistake with China, with reference to China's policy, its China policy. And they believe they did. They did make a mistake, which is China cannot be changed. China cannot be changed. China has successfully made itself the number 2 biggest economy in the world within the system designed by the United States. Very successful. And also China has maintained or safeguarded very closely its political setup, political system, political institutions. It has not been swayed by the U.S. Economic influence. Let's use that word. And even in economic terms, China has not adopted the American model, what we call neoliberalism, neoliberalist model, meaning privatization, complete privatization, marketization, capitalization. And because China has learned some lessons from other countries. So economically, politically, U.S.'s dream or U.S. assumption about the future of China has not happened. And it's not going to happen, they believe. Therefore, after 40 years, I think this is watershed year, especially 2017, since Trump assumes the White House, assumes presidency, U.S. has come to the conclusion, it's not just President Trump. I think it involves the bureaucracy of United States government, U.S. Congress, U.S. elites, those people who study international relations, who study China, even include Wall Street, Main Street too, meaning those people who are affected by globalization, jobs moving to China, etc., etc. So there is more or less a national consensus building up when President Trump took office. And they came to a conclusion that is crucial, I think, for both China and the United States to consider very seriously. That is, U.S. believes what it has done vis-a-vis China is wrong, or at least only benefit China, is not benefiting the United States as they have expected. So they decided something new has to be done.